Hi, so I'm going to explain the solution behind this kind of confusing lead code question, which is reversing a linked list. So we all know what a linked list is. So we basically just have nodes that consist of its own memory address and then a pointer that points to the succeeding node. And we know that a linked list is done when the last pointer points to null. And what we want to do here is we want to change which node each of our nodes points to. So instead of pointing to the next node, it's going to point to a previous node. And that's actually the key, is that all we're really changing is the next pointer. So that instead of pointing to next, it'll point to a previous node. Okay, so the way I understood this problem was by making a table with all of our elements. So we have a section for memory. So I just came up with some random memory addresses, A0, A1, A2, whatever. And then we have some elements, so ABC, and then we have a pointer to the next memory address. So A should point to A1 because A1 is our next element, and then B2 should point to A2 because A2 is our next element, and C should actually point to null because that would be the end of our list. We don't have an A3. Okay, and now let's just go through our code. So you'll see why we have to initialize a null pointer in the beginning, but we're saying that this null pointer will be our previous. So I'm just gonna write our variable names and what they currently correspond to on the left side. So that's previous, and then we're saying we also want to use a current pointer. Like in many other linked list problems, we want to keep track of where the head is. And okay, and now we'll enter the loop. So while current is not null, and current is not null because it's A0, we will call a next pointer. We'll create a pointer called NXT, which will be the pointer, which will be the element that current points to. So in this case, it's A1. And then we're setting current's next to previous. So the next element in current, which is this row, is previous, which is null PTR. So A1 will now be null PTR. So we're kind of going like this. And now what used to be current will now be called previous. So now we're moving like that. So what used to be called current will now be called previous. And previous is no longer present in our loop here. And then we'll just keep going like that. What used to be NXT will now be called cur. Okay, so current is still not null, so we'll keep going. So the element pointed to by current, which is this one, right, A2, which is this one, will now be called NXT. And then we'll just call the element pointed to by current will be previous, which was A0, so now this will be A0. And now what used to be current will now be previous. And what used to be NXT will now be current. And we're almost done. So current is still not null, so we'll keep going. So we'll call NXT the element that current points to, which is null, which was in the beginning. So you might be able to see why we had to initialize, why we had to create that null pointer in the beginning. And then the element pointed to the next pointer of previous will be, sorry, the next pointer of current will be previous. So it's A1. And then what used to be current will now be previous. And what used to be NXT will now be current. Okay, just one more step. Okay, we'll just do this one more time. So current is still not null. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Current is null. Oh, yeah. So we can see that current is null, which signifies that our loop is over and we've reversed it. If you don't believe me, we can draw it out. So the key here is that we're returning previous, and previous is address A1, A2. And we can see that A2 points to A1, and A1 points to A0, which points to null. A2 was C, A1 was B, A0 was A, which goes to null. So we can see how we went from ABC to CBA, which is exactly what we wanted to do. So the key takeaway here is that really we were just using these 3 pointers and we were just moving them around to change what is considered previous, next, and current. And the main part was just changing the next pointer. So instead of pointing to the next element, it points to the previous element. And I recommend just making a table and doing this for like 10 nodes, and then you'll start to catch the pattern really fast. Another thing to remember is that we always insert from right to left. So current turns into previous, not vice versa, and so on. So hopefully this was helpful.